Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our very first Finance and Accounting Tech Spotlight. These spotlights save you time as you take a deeper dive into real tech solutions. Today's session, we turn the tech spotlight on AI and automation for Treasury excellence. A special thanks to Nihilus, the strategic cash management platform, and today's exclusive Tech Spotlight sponsor. My name is Kristen Todd with the CFO Leadership Council, and I'll be facilitating today's session. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Your lines are muted. However, we do encourage every one of your questions, so please type them in the questions section, and we'll address them during the Q&A portion. I'm excited to share that Nihilus is a sponsor of our Fate Tech Expo 2025. We'll be back in New York City at the Javits Center in November. We hope you'll continue your tech discovery by joining us and, of course, visiting Nihilus live at their booth. Addressing your tech stack, we know, can be very overwhelming. We are here for you. Our Finance and Accounting Tech Briefing is a great resource. It's a bi-weekly e-newsletter compiled by our brilliant CFO editor and gives you the pulse on all the hot topics. This section, What's in Your Tech Stack, is my personal favorite. I'd love to hear what yours is. Visit our site to subscribe today and read recent issues. Now, speaking of hot topics, let's shift gears to the real reason we've gathered today. A warm welcome to our amazing guest speakers today. Matt Harlan is Chief Treasury Officer at Nihilus. After a decade of Treasury leadership positions, Matthew joined Nihilus to spearhead the go-to market strategy and community from the practitioner's perspective. Previously, he held lead Treasury roles at Toast and Samsara. He holds an MA in finance from Harvard, an MBA from Brown University, and is based in Houston, Texas. Welcome, Matt. And Hey Kim is Vice President of Finance at Alloy, a valued Nihilus customer. In his prior role at Better.com, Kim represented the accounting org through 160 mil plus Series C round, the launch of 4 affiliate entities, 3 new offices, 2 office relocations, and a high-profile partnership with Ally Bank. Whew. He enjoys building and scaling finance functions to enable effective decision-making for early-stage companies. He received his bachelor's and his master's at the University of Missouri and is based in New York City. Gentlemen, again, a warm welcome. We're thrilled you're here. The floor is all yours.
Cool. Thanks, Kristen. Those are powerful intros. Excited to be with you guys here today, and I'm also very excited to be joined by Hey Kim, who, from his background, has done many things within finance, has seen finance scale. Today, we're going to talk about a few things. So we're going to do an intro into interactive case study with Alloy. We're going to talk about some of their challenges, the pain points they've experienced, and we're going to hear a lot from Hey Kim on how he utilized technology to help bring efficiency and automation to his finance team. We're also going to make AI practical. Let's be honest, AI has become a buzzword in today's society, and so we're going to make it practical to give you the practical tools to understand how AI is utilized, what can it do for you, and how it can provide some automation to your workflows. So let me start by just giving a brief intro to what Nihilus is. Nihilus is a next-gen AI-enabled platform that helps finance and treasury teams automate treasury, accounting, and collection workflows. And ultimately, we do this by providing 3 distinct layers to our platform. The first layer is our data ingestion. And this is where we're able to say yes to multiple partners. We're able to bring in information from the banks, the ERP, CRMs, expense management systems, payment gateways like Stripe and PayPal, and also planning tools like Adaptive and Planful, and many more. And we achieve this multimodal approach by really having a quick implementation. So we're able to onboard and accommodate customers in under 8 weeks, and some customers as quick as a few days. For banks, for example, we can connect as quickly as a day and as long as 8 weeks, depending on the integration. We've built proprietary parsing technology where data ingestion from any source is possible very quickly. Our second layer is the data enrichment layer. So now that we have all this data parked in one place, here we're able to utilize AI to help us make sense of all the data. As an example, for B2B companies, we're able to ingest AP and AR data straight from the ERP, enrich it using AI, all in service of providing a more accurate cash impact data. Because we know that invoice, for example, invoice due date or bill date does not always imply when cash moves. And so we're also able to leverage auto tagging to automatically tag transactions. So as you pull in the unique universe of all your bank transactions, that's traditionally fragmented, we can help you understand where cash is at any given point of the day. And the third layer is our strategic insights layer. And this is where things get really exciting, where AI acts almost as a co pilot to help you understand trends, analysis at the most granular level. In many cases, the bill and the invoice level. It can do things like understand when entities need to be funded. It can help you also understand board policies like counterparty risk exposure, currency exposure, FX, both balance sheet and cash flow exposure, to give you risk control. And then you can also drive forecast accuracy to help you land your forecast numbers in real time. Many of us know that are practitioners, it's not always easy because you don't have complete authority over the end-to-end process of cash. But with Nihilus, you get that visibility to be able to augment your decisions, all in service of helping you be more accurate. Let's talk about who uses Nihilus. So, finance teams run on Nihilus. We service a wide range of leading public and private companies across all verticals and across all cash types. We service companies that have high debt and revolver usage, as well as companies that are looking to optimize their cash. And these are just a few of our customers here. So let's talk a little bit more about the platform, what it actually helps to provide. The platform provides a rich benefit which allows customers to have more control, ultimately, outperform targets, and automate reconciliation in service of having a tired close. These are all things that finance people love. And so when you implement Nihilus, you're able to move from operational to strategic to help you to continue to move through your workflows with the most efficiency. Let's hear a little bit from Hay. Hey, can you introduce Alloy? Would love to hear about your journey there, and also would love to hear about the composition of your finance team.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Hey Kim, again, VP of Finance at Alloy. Alloy is a fraud and identity platform. We've been around since 2015, Series C, venture capital backed. I was a 0 to 1 finance employee when we were about 20 people, maybe 5 going on 6 years ago. And since then, we've grown to almost 300, rounding about there at the end of this year, fiscal year. And then from a finance perspective, we're pretty small. So if you're a startup, you know that you can't really have the headcount dedicated to treasury only. So from an accounting team perspective, we have 4 folks on the accounting side, 2 on the finance, one myself, the VP, and then we have our CFO, and then I also manage our business intelligence analytics group, which today is 1 person. So a total team of 9, 4 in accounting. And of that team, we don't have a dedicated treasury team, but we do have an FP&A person, an accounting associate that really focus on our cash inflows and outflows. And now this has really helped us sort of cut through a lot of complexity and not have to hire a treasury person or someone focused just on our cash positions yet, because we can scale pretty quickly with the use of technology and automation, which we'll walk through in a bit.
That's awesome. I love that. Sounds like you've had a wild startup ride at Alloy to see it through iteration. That's really great. Let's talk a little bit about some of your challenges. I think what I hear from you, and also just working with the team and Alloy intersecting with Nihilus, there was a visibility issue, and ultimately we were able to kind of help solve that to move you guys to scalability. Just to give a preview, there was manual, time-consuming cash flow management, lack of real-time visibility to see balances across all banks in real time, and then also reconciliation delays. We know that, of course, finance and strategy, it has a downstream impact whenever accounting is not reconciled on time or whenever close days are extended, and also limited strategic focus. But hey, I'd love to hear from you on some of these areas. Maybe if you can help amplify and help us understand a little bit more of some of the pain points that you faced prior to Nihilus.
Yeah, of course. For anyone, just to give some context, we have over 10 different bank accounts, over 5 different financial institutions. And the kinds of accounts are also very complex. We have demand deposit accounts, money market accounts, money market funds, different insured cash sweep products. And so trying to get all the balances or all of your transaction data, it becomes a 30-minute exercise, literally just logging in and out of different platforms, downloading transaction statements, and then suddenly an hour later, it's all out of date anyways, once you receive some AR or make a payment, etc. So we
Yeah.
used to have an associate try to put together a weekly cash sheet, and it would take hours and hours. So I literally think Nihilist saved us a full head count in doing that weekly, daily, etc. Some
Wow.
manual cash reporting headache that no one wants to work on.
That's great. It almost sounds like you had a virtual team member in a way by utilizing the automation, which is awesome. And
Yeah, yeah.
from your role in finance, leading by example also and making sure that finance is efficient is important. So that's really great. Um,
Hmm.
hey, I'd love to hear from you. Let's talk a little bit more deeper about what does next gen treasury mean. I can just give a quick synopsis. So we all know that the TMS market is going through a bit of a renaissance. There's been prior legacy tools like Kariba, Reval, G Treasury, and they take a long time to implement. I've had the privilege, or maybe not privilege, of implementing several of them in past lives, and I understand the pain of being able to take someone off a project, having a year-long implementation, and then you don't even know really if the solution is going to work. When we think about next-gen treasury, what we really think about is utilizing AI to help bring technology to the finance stack and the CFO stack, which has traditionally been underserved, right? And so now we can do things like connect quicker. We can connect within 8 weeks, which leverages to have a low implementation cost. And we can also utilize AI to help us understand what's happening. So no longer overturning every stone in service of understanding what's happening with cash, but we can be able to have a pick list or a menu of a couple of choice actions to take so we can take our next decision. But hey, I'd love to hear more about, maybe let's talk about some of the real-time cash visibility. What was the impact to the org there, if you can dive a little bit deeper for us?
Yeah, I would point to two things. Well, one side note I want to make is I think it was actually 8 weeks. There's a lot of platforms that will tell you, oh, you'll do this in 2 weeks, you'll do this in a month, and suddenly it takes 6 to 9 months. So I will say it was actually quick. I bought a lot of software, and I think that is very rare. So that's one side note. But what I kind of want to add is the real-time cash visibility was so valuable because I think in the yesteryears, you would rely on an accounting close and you would have a cash flow statement that's an indirect cash flow statement that's accounting based. Starts at net income, you take out cash or non-cash items, and then you can't really figure out what's operational.
Right.
Nihilist is automating our cash tagging, so we actually know, okay, we say we spent 100K. I don't really care that's 100K in prepaids. I want to know it's 100K, 30K of that is for R&D, 20K of that is sales and marketing, etc. So we can actually work with our stakeholders across the business and spend time with them on the FP&A side versus trying to parse out what is an accrual here or capitalized there, etc. It sort
Yeah.
of cuts through that sort of noise.
That's awesome. And within that process, was there a target that you guys were trying to control or a short-term forecast that you were trying to land? Maybe you can talk a bit about that internal process.
Yeah, so previously, so I think we've been with Nihilist for just over or just about 2 years. Previously, honestly, we were flying by blind on our cash forecasting. It was very delayed. I can proudly say in the past 2 years, we've actually beat our cash burn targets. And a lot of that's because we can
Sure.
live and see our AR targets, for example, and quickly work with our CSMs or our go-to-market teams on AR or on the AP side or the budgeting side, etc. We can spend more time actioning with our stakeholders versus trying to figure out what is the data saying or how do we parse through this noise or create an aggregated metric that you can't really quite make sense of.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and I love how you articulated that, where it's able to really distill down the key drivers, and you can actually
Hmm.
have a more clear understanding of what's taking place with your cash. One thing I love to talk about is you were traditionally a lean team. It
Hmm.
sounded like you guys weren't flush with resources to be able to throw bodies at every problem. And what I tend to hear sometimes when I'm talking to prospects is there's this thought process that they don't have enough bandwidth because of having a lean team to be able
Hmm.
to implement a solution. So I'd love to hear from you. Why did you make the decision to choose Nihilus? And what was some of the impact that you had on just the team by implementing a solution in a short period of time to get the team more efficient?
Yeah, so first I'll say I have bought FP&A software that took more time managing it than the value that it's given us. So I've seen that problem a lot. So I was very wary when buying software about how much time does it take to manage it? Is it going to actually add more noise or add more hours to the team? Nihilist in particular, I would point to two things. One is the team itself was spectacular, helping us build what we want to see, the tagging that we want to see, the implementation, it was very low lift,
Yeah.
honestly. It was like, okay, here's a call between us and this bank. Can you figure out the reporting? And they're like, cool, we got it. And it was very low lift for us. And the second thing I would point to is on a day-to-day basis, we don't have to spend our time trying to dig through accuracy anymore. It's strange to think the accuracy is sort of baseline now, and now we can focus on more strategic work, which
Yeah.
honestly is better for the business, but also better for employees for their
Right.
own growth. They can spend time working on strategic projects versus spending time downloading reports and tagging Excel files to get it reconciled.
I love that. I love that. And just even continuing to pull on that thread of being more strategic, is there any
Hmm.
impacts that it's had on your relationship with the board or your relationship with the CFO? Has it helped to build any trust? I'd love to hear how this has even helped you kind of manage, your bosses and other stakeholders as you're kind of working through the data.
Yeah, I think trust is an understated but huge factor for finance, and cash is one of the biggest items for trust. Like, can you actually hit your cash burn target? So
Yeah.
last week, actually, we had our board meeting to greenlight our FY26, which is our next year plan, and a lot of the sentiment we got from the board when we put together our financials and our 3-year plan, et cetera, was we actually trust what this finance plan or this finance team is putting together because of the past 2 years of constant results, metrics, readouts, etc. And it's with Nihilist that we can and we do monthly readouts on cash positions, sources of inflows, outflows, and then how we're tracking against our goals. And because we can sort of go straight to reporting and strategy versus spending time on the transaction side of the house,
Yeah.
it really helps us build that integrity and trust with the board and our management team.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, trust is imperative, especially when you're talking about cash in a quickly moving short iteration cycle. Um,
Hmm.
Matters. It makes or breaks going deeper for 2 weeks or getting sign off and moving on with the next effort.
Hmm.
I'd love to maybe also discuss a little bit about your team. Has this helped anyone on your team become more strategic as we think about training and we think about also as you develop new talent within Alloy, so people can scale like you within the company? Has there been any benefits to the underlying team?
Yeah, so for all the finance and accounting folks on the call, I think we know that there is a severe deficit of accounting talent in particular. There's a lot of articles out there, et cetera. And so, how do we make sure that accountants feel A, empowered by technology, and B, feel like more of a strategic part of the business as opposed to just close the books and hand the financials off to someone? I'll completely raise my hand and say 2 years ago, it was a lot of time on an associate just downloading files, tagging files, updating a sheet, and then suddenly having to do it again because suddenly it's out of date an hour or two later, a day later, etc. And so it has actually helped the team develop more into strategic partners, get into those meetings, collaborating with different stakeholders across the business versus just spending their time trying to reconcile transactions. So I am very pro that accounting is finally getting some technology that's helping them be a more strategic voice to the business as opposed to being seen as, and I have an accounting background, seen as just a back office function.
Right. That's awesome. And it even sounds like within that strategic elevation, it's also helped cross department, collaboration.
Hmm.
Also, is there anywhere where you see your team engaging more with other departments that's kind of helping feed into this whole process of being more efficient?
Yeah, I would say the number one category is with our go-to-market team. So previously, we would pull AR reports. If you know QuickBooks or NetSuite, they're very
Yeah.
large aggregated reports that are outstanding, current, 30, 60, 90 days, et cetera, but they're all very aggregated. And to be honest, a lot of accounting teams don't have knowledge of clients at the very specific level, strategic accounts,
Right.
who's a big high priority client versus not, et cetera. They're not in tune with the business in a lot of cases.
Right.
Nowadays, we have very strategic meetings with our CSM team and a go to market team. Our accounting team is aware of different strategic cross sell motions, upsell motions, or who's okay that they're delayed because they have this upsell here and the pipeline's looking like this, et cetera. They're
Yeah.
able to get more into the weeds of our RevOps and our go-to-market motion and really understand the business and play a strategic role there versus just like a blanket AR readout that requires a lot of manual work to make any sense out of.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, it sounds like this was almost like a finance transformation project in a way.
Yeah,
Where it wasn't
certainly.
just implementing a TMS, but it also sounds like increasing the acumen of the team to be able to present to a executive audience, strengthening cross collaborative relationships, but then also removing some of the manual work, which I can imagine teams cry about because ultimately
hmm
everybody wants to do more strategic work.
hmm
People want to grow in their careers, and so kudos to you for really helping to drive a transformation amongst the Alloy finance team. That's awesome. Um, so thank you. Hey, what I want to do now is we've talked a lot about the solution, and I think seeing is believing, right? And so let's take a look at an interactive demo, and let's actually dive in to the platform, and let's take a look at how the product actually functions. Awesome. So this is the platform. We are a leader in the next gen TMS space with quick implementation, AI embedded insights, and really enriching data from multiple different platforms all in one. And this screen should look similar to a lot of the audience out there. This is our cash position screen. And so what we're looking at here is a visual representation of all of our bank balances and our cash balances across the business. You'll notice here a couple of bank relationships here, but you'll also notice that we've included PSP balances, and this is to give you a sense of the holistic view of cash. We can also see a breakout of FX across the business. We can see a breakout of our subsidiary cash, and also custom labels that we set. These labels can be as descriptive as non-restricted or restricted cash, and we also have customers using this to give a sense of geo across their cash balances, so LATAM, EMEA, APAC, etc. And then this last view is my favorite, and this is where we are able to see the fullest view or holistic view of cash across all of our efforts. And so we can have our loan balance, our current account, merchant account, MMDAs, wallets, etc., to give you a sense of where liquidity is at any given point in the day. You can also convert this balance to another currency if you'd like. And then as we scroll down, we can also see the same information in a table view. Everything on this screen is exportable. And so no more having management tap you on the shoulder to ask you where cash is. You can just export this or share a report with them so that they can have the information at their inbox. But we can see each relationship broken out by the account, by the type, subsidiary, and also label. And one unique feature here is Nihilus is actually doing a back-end validation process across all balances so that we can make sure that you are effectively working on the most relevant and validated data. Where things get interesting is where we actually add AI into the platform. And so we can see here on this far right pane that Nihilus is helping us understand excess balances. It's helping us understand counterparty exposure. It's helping us understand the funding of entities. And what I'd like to tell practitioners is this is really helping to remove the anxiety out of the role because Nihilus AI is giving you both proactive and at the time alerts so you can ensure your money's at the right place. And then if we go to the transaction screen, this is where we are able to pull in all of the transactions, so across banks, CRMs, PSPs, etc., into one place. And we are actually auto categorizing those transactions to help give you a realistic sense of where your cash actuals are, but also where your cash is headed in terms of your forecast. And so we can see here at the top, this is a total amount of what has come in so far. We can also see what has been categorized in the system. Right now it's at 100%. And then we can see that breakout across debits and credits. One interesting thing here is if you notice the purple, this is where Nihilus AI is actually helping to identify transactions, allocate them to the right category, and make sure that they're classified appropriately. And so we can see here that Nihilus AI has identified that this transaction is belonging to Rippling. It knows that Rippling belongs in payroll and benefits. And it also understands that it's associated with a Nihilus global entity and it's a non-restricted account. This is game changing. Traditionally, with legacy systems, this is only affected through rules. And what we're doing here at Nihilus is we're allowing AI to do the work for you so that you can continue to work on more strategic projects and priorities. If we look at cash flow, we can also see a historical representation of our cash balances over time. And this is a great tool to analyze those historical fluctuations in cash to really help give you that flux commentary as you're looking at cash month over month, quarter over quarter, and to help you stay sharp on the trends as they're impacting the business. Other things we can do here is we can look across different time horizons, monthly, quarterly, 3 months. We can also change the way that this information is rolling up to look at daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. And then we can also change the time horizon of this data to be able to see either a longer span or a shorter span that's custom to the date that we want to see. Moving on to forecast, I'd say there's no solution in the market today that has these types of capabilities. And I want you to envision working in Excel. Most of us are used to working in Excel. We've been working in Excel for decades, but Excel is error prone. It's also subject to errors in version history. It's a great tool, but it comes with a lot of risk. And so what we wanted to do here was maintain the properties of Excel that are great. It's easy to use. Users can input information. They also can leverage utilizing formulas. But we also wanted to supercharge it by being connected to real data sources like your ERP, your CRM, your expense platform, and then supercharged and aided by AI agents. And so now we have a platform where it feels very much like native Excel, but it's actually smarter. And so everything to the left here is actuals versus forecast. Everything in this far, far left pane are the categories that are set on the transaction screen. And so as all those transactions are coming in daily, they're being automatically categorized in each category. Everything in the center here is a current iteration of forecast to give you a sense on how cash is shaping up versus your most relevant numbers. And that really helps you to augment actuals if you need to. If you need to make some decisions real time, you can be able to have the visibility to do that. And then everything to the far right is the future out of the forecast. Where things get interesting, as I mentioned, with the use of AI, is there's multiple ways that we can compile the forecast. We could utilize manual input, so we can simply copy and paste, drag and drop, like we would any Excel template. We can use expected transactions, and that's actually utilizing the open invoices and the open AR coming from an AP coming from the ERP. And so we're able to run regression analysis on your open invoices, which helps to give a sense of the true cash impact versus just the invoice due date, because we know that the invoice due date is not actually when customers pay. And then we can also utilize Nihilus AI to now build a forecast for us. And so no more toggling across spreadsheets, trying to understand drivers. We can actually utilize the intelligence of AI to help us forecast what a category may look like in the future. If we go to the far right here, I want to show you a couple of things. So these properties can be set on a full category, but we can also set them on the individual cell itself in the event we wanted to change how one cell operated in the current time period versus the category. So here you can see we can update the amounts. We can type it in here and update the number and how the formula is being calculated. We can also see the underlying data that is impacting this number, which is nice. We also have the ability to create notes on the forecast section. And this is really helpful as we're working across our forecasting workflow. And we want to ensure that all the team is working cohesively to understand how the forecast is being compiled and maybe what things we need to take a deeper look at. And so as we write a note here for Johnny to ask what's driving collections, we can actually see within our collaboration layer that the item has been logged and Johnny has the ability to now upload files. He understands the priority level of this task, and he can communicate with management as he's working to solve, to understand what's going on with collections here. A couple of things also is, given it's similar to Excel, one of the things that's really powerful about Excel is having the pivot-like functionality, and we can do the same thing in Nihilus. So we can look across entity. We can see entities juxtaposed against one another to see how they're doing. We can also look across currency to see how USD is doing versus Euro if we wanted to understand how currency movement is happening to get a sense of cash flow exposure. And then we also have the ability just to see everything in consolidated. With that, we can also see things in isolation. So we can drill down to look at an entity in isolation without seeing the parent. And we can also just segment by currency if we just wanted to focus on the cash flow for that currency. We can also, similar to the cash flow module, we can also change how the forecast is being rolled up. So we can look at half monthly, every 2 weeks, monthly, or quarterly. And then we can also change the window parameters of the data if we wanted to see a specific time range. So you're not bound to a week, a month, a quarter. You can also use custom date ranges to understand how the data is being compiled and maybe to even uncover some trends within your cash flow analysis. And then another interesting thing here as well is we can also look at scenarios. And so if you have a BOD plan and you need to be able to understand how your current iteration of forecast is measuring up against that plan. Is it overachieving? Is it not? What is the delta between those numbers? You can now manage and upload scenarios right into the system to ensure that you're keeping all of the disaggregated pieces of cash mapped in one location. So going back to the forecast screen, similar to the position screen, things get really interesting when we add AI on top of this technology. So we can actually now see AIs giving us suggestions and insights into the data to help us do our job better. And so we can see AIs giving us insights on when we're going to have a cash deficit, when excess cash is going to be available, and even suggestions around forecast accuracy down to the bill and the invoice level to help us stay on track with our cash. The other thing I'll mention is because we are touching the ERP, we're able to bring in rich information that maybe traditionally Treasury doesn't have access to, but it can really help in terms of managing working capital. So when we look at our customers, we can see customers, we can see their billing terms, we can see the balances that are overdue, the balances that have been paid, and then we can also get a sense of how those customers have been paying on average against historical invoices. And so one might use this information in the current way. We can see, for example, 11bravos.com has a term to pay us within 30 days, but they're actually paying us on average around 44 days. This is something that I might use as a practitioner to go then to my collection manager to try to change behavior in service of collecting that cash sooner. There might be a reason, or it just might be going unnoticed because no one's tracking it. But now you have the ability to track that information all in one place in service of making sure that you have a more streamlined, efficient, and accurate cash flow. We can do the same thing on the vendor side as well. And so we can see here, for example, Drata.com should be paid in 45 days, but we're actually paying them on average in 50 days. This is great. We may not want to change that behavior. Similarly, we can see Google. We're supposed to be paying them in 45 days, but we're actually paying them on average 6 days earlier. This could be a good question for me to ask my AP team to say, why are we doing this? In many cases, AP doesn't know. And so this gives Treasury the ability and finance to have the data at their disposal to ensure that we stay on track with our priorities of managing cash. Within the system, we also have the ability to do a couple of other things, which I'll go over really quickly. Nihilus is one of the only systems that has PSP reconciliation. And so now we can do a three-party reconciliation between the bank, the payment service provider, and the ERP. So you can understand where transactions are at any given point in the life cycle. And it really helps to give a clear understanding of your cash in transit as it relates to overall cash. And going back to the transaction screen, all of these transactions that are coming in, being coded for the purpose of cash flow, also have the ability to write back to the GL. And so now Nihilus has the ability to push these transactions to the GL, to automate the journal entry process. And we're seeing a lot of our customers shorten close by 1 to 2 business days. So, what we see here is a full automated suite between Treasury and accounting to not only help Treasury move more efficiently and be accurate, but also to help accounting shorten close, be more accurate, and automate a lot of their manual workflows. Great, awesome. So seeing is believing, right? Ultimately, um, hey, what I'd love to hear from you is, we talked very broadly about impacts, but I'd love to even clarify that a bit. I think, we talked a lot about manual time savings, improved collection rates, enhanced cross-department collaboration, et cetera. But I'd love to, maybe have you summate, why do you think this is a tool that every finance team should be running on today?
Yeah, happy to. I yeah, I truly believe we saved a full-time person, not only like in literal hours, but just insanity because no one wants to be doing that work and just literally logging into portals. And I'm sure a lot of folks on this call also have like bank accounts where you need a secure ID token. Sometimes it's on your phone. Sometimes literally there are still today where you have physical tokens. It's just a nightmare to deal with that really just drags on your talents and motivation, to be completely honest. So I think that's a big add. And then I think getting from a motivation perspective, getting your team closer to the business from an AR perspective is just life changing. Really understanding what are clients buying, what are strategic relationships, account plans, etc. Really gets them closer to the business, which is just helpful for their own career and development and business acumen. And then I think the final thing I want to add is from a cash management exercise, understanding not only your position, but being able to forecast for the future is just life changing. That you can spend time adding your budget and your forecast and how are you tracking against that in one place. Prior, it was just like 10 different sheets, update your model, quickly
Right.
out of date, wait for accounting to close, and just that add to the business is just makes you more effective, more lean, and more efficient as a finance and accounting org, which I'm just very grateful for.
Awesome. Hey, it's been a pleasure to have you and to be hosted by CFO Council. I think now we can maybe jump into some questions. I'd love to pass it back to the moderator, and then we can proceed with the next step.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. I know this has been really helpful to our audience. I'm just going to start in order. The first one came in from Michaela. My question is for Hay. How did you evaluate privacy concerns when implementing Nihilus, and how do you feel about the privacy?
I don't think it's any different from, say, you were using any sort of FP&A software, to be completely honest. And when we're going through our procurement process, we have a pretty rigid process with our compliance and IT teams, where they review the SOC 2s and the security, whatnot. I'm not going to use the right phrasing or document language there, but I let our compliance teams do their diligence on Nihilus, and they left with no issues there. And for us, I'm speaking for Alloy as a fraud and identity platform company. We have very rigorous privacy standards that our compliance and legal team and general counsel really enforces, and often it drags out our procurement cycles. It's hard to buy certain things, etc. And Nihilus passed with flying colors, and so we had no issues there.
All right,
Great. And maybe to
fantastic.
add to that, we have all the relevant SOC 1, SOC 2, GDPR documents, at our disposal. So, but awesome.
This one comes in from Sean. How granular can the labels and type be? For example, can you tag what's payroll, commissions, collections, etc.?
Yes, I can take that one. Hey,
Yep.
it can be as granular as you want it to be. So ultimately, categories are set at your level of comfortability for your granularity. So, for example, if you just wanted to see payroll in general, or you wanted to disaggregate payroll to bonus, commissions, and your standard pay runs, you can do that. Totally possible. The second thing is labels are also custom. We see customers using this, especially fintechs, for restricted or non-restricted cash, but for large multi-geo companies, we also see them using this as a geotag to understand LATAM versus APAC versus EMEA. So to answer your question, it's completely customized. We can also help you with ideation to help you understand where you should be. But ultimately, a lot of our customers come to the table with that understanding, and it's easy to augment.
Fantastic. This one also is for you, Matt. Are there a list of ERPs that Nihilus works with?
Yes, we work with all major ERPs, NetSuite, PeopleSoft, several. So there's no, because of our connectivity and our ability to say yes to every partner, we have a multimodal approach. And so ultimately, if there's not an API connection, we can find a way to connect into the ERP. To add to that point, we also have some companies that are going through an M&A cycle, and they're acquiring companies that have very different ERPs, but they still need to be able to leverage that centrality of data. And so the benefit of Nihilus is because of that multimodal connection approach, we can have multiple ERPs within the system. so they can still retain the ability to view all balances and all transactions in one place.
All right, great. This one comes in from Sean. Loving the questions, folks. This is one of the big reasons we've gathered today. Can reporting be configured to report what would be operations, investing, and financing cash flows?
Yes, that's a hierarchy thing, and we do present the ability for you to create hierarchies and also parent-child relationships between categories. So the answer is yes, you can be able to augment that. The other thing I'll also say is this is your data, and so every screen that we walk through in the demo has the ability to be exported, and we also retain the ability to send automated reports. Let's say there was a weekly report that you wanted to send out to the team on cash to give broader finance a sense on where we're tracking against our plans. We can be able to help you automate that so that you can manage that and you can kind of cut down maybe some of the rapid fire questions that come whenever cash is brought into focus.
All right, perfect. This one is coming in to Hey. Does your team use FP&A software, for example, Anaplan or Adaptive, for anything cash flow related, or are you leveraging Nihilus to simply upload the cash forecast?
We looked at FP&A software and we actually decided, we looked at Pigment, Cube, Anaplan, Adaptive, etc. And we actually decided we are going to use Nihilish for the cash completely instead. So we actually made the decision not to. I would actually say those software require actually a full-time person to manage. We have a small finance team, two-person team using Adaptive. I think personally, in my experience, I don't think you get the lift. We're not quite at that scale yet. I'm not against the decision over time, but I think once we grow to a 5+ team, I would consider a larger FP&A software. But the reason Nihilus worked for us was it actually added hours in terms of like capacity to our team versus being a big clunky thing that you had to manage.
And maybe to that point, we do have current customers using Adaptive, Planful, etc. And ultimately, what some customers are doing is, everything kind of, in most cases, drafts off the P&L outlook cycles, and so they're using some of those drivers to interpolate what it means for direct bottoms up cash flow, like maybe taking a proxy of revenue for collections, etc. So we do have customers sometimes using pieces of data from that platform in order to help inform and drive their bottoms up cash flow forecasts.
Okay, next one. How do you manage interest optimization and FX hedge?
Great question. So if you recall in the position screen, it gives us the ability to see a few things on the risk management side, of course, counterparty exposure, et cetera. But we also have the ability to see balance sheet exposure. So you can see how your currencies, based on the bank side, are coming in and how that relates to overall your USD, or you can convert it to the equivalent. Within the cash flow forecast screen, if you recall, we have multiple pivots and multiple views that help us also understand what's happening with FX. The first one, of course, is looking at the consolidated view. We can then disaggregate consolidated view to look at entities juxtaposed to one another. We can look strictly at currency, and then we also have the ability to isolate and zero in. And so, in response to understanding what's actually happening with FX, you have a great way of understanding that. The other thing I'll say is interest optimization. Let's talk about in terms of investing balances. The AI agent is going to help you understand peaks and troughs of cash. So it'll give you a good sense on understanding how long you can have something invested in the event that you wanted to take better decisions to invest, longer out on the yield curve. You could do that. Many of our customers, of course, are leveraging money market funds or deposits in countries around the world, and so they now have almost an analyst to help them understand how much is available and for what time period they can invest. On the opposite side of the house, when it comes to interest utilization for debt, being able to see your net cash position over a long series of time also helps to inform revolver usage. And so we have startups that are trying to understand, hey, we don't want to take additional interest expense. We want to be able to manage it a little bit more tightly so that we can lower our cost of borrowing. And so subsequently on the opposite side, now this also helps achieve that as well.
All right, fantastic. So we are at the end time, but we have two more questions. Gentlemen, can you stick around to answer them?
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. Can it also connect to investment accounts such as US Treasury, Vanguard, Schwab, JD Edwards, etc.?
Yeah, so going back to the multimodal approach of being able to say yes, we just need to understand what is the data output. So in many cases, it can be a flat file, SFTP, or an Excel, and we can parse that data into the system. But we have companies using Clearwater, for example, or using their custodial account balances to have a full holistic picture of where liquidity sits across the business. So let's say you're custodied at US Bank and you're doing an SMA, separately managed account, and you want to be able to incorporate that aggregate notional balance of investments into your cash position. We have some companies doing that as well. But I'll also say, just to add to that, when we think about positions, we give you the ultimate flexibility. In many cases, companies are using that to understand cash across their core banks, but also in other cases, they're using this to understand the mix shift of cash versus debt versus investments as they start to manage liquidity a lot tighter and optimize liquidity.
Right, this is one, and I feel like it's a really good one to end on. After implementation, how do you support your customers?
Actually, I want to give that over to Hay. Maybe get an unbiased view.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what other clients' experiences are like, but I would say our CSM team, the shout out Emily, I think who is the head of or leads the CS team, is phenomenal. I think we meet with her basically weekly, but usually monthly to understand what else we can do, what else we can add, changing up our categories, our hierarchies. We're always making our business more complex. So we now have, pounds and we have a UK entity and how do we do this and how do we do that, etc. So I would say they always roll with the punches. They always come with a solution, recommendation, and they move quick, which is something we're looking for in a partner.
Well, yeah. Anything, last words before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would say to the extent that there's interest, I would welcome. You can reach out, find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure Hay is also accessible. I would imagine as you hear and as you demo the platform, there's a lot of ideation on how you can potentially use Nihilus, and so I welcome the opportunity to have a conversation. You can reach out direct if you need to.
All right, well, gentlemen, that was a quick 45 minutes, wasn't it? Thank you
Great.
all for connecting so much, and a very special nod to you both and to the entire Nihilist team for helping to launch this inaugural Tech Spotlight. I'd like to think of this gathering as just the start conversation starter, a virtual handshake, if you will. Keep the conversation going. As Matt mentioned, please reach out with any follow-up questions or connect maybe with a one-on-one with him and learn more. Also, look for our post-event email that will include a link to today's recording, the slide deck, and also some more information on Nihilus. This does conclude today's spotlight. Until next time, stay well, stay curious, and stay connected. Thank you all.
Thank you, Hay. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everyone.